It was like you got entered a world of, it was like looking at another planet. And what was going on, it was like, what? It's just like a little calling card, isn't it? Like that you put it, and it's a way of getting up. And graffiti, one of the main things is about getting your name out as much as possible. There were these poster markers that came out in the 80s. We used to call them torches. True. There was a drink called Night Train Express, and so Tilt told me about it. He goes, yeah, that's bombing juice. It's got a train on the front.
No!
He had a train on the
Seriously?
front of it. Yeah. We were walking down the train lines and we just fell asleep a lot on the side of the tracks.
Like, were you so hammered?
Yeah, we just fell asleep. I think even Tilt might have even had some music. I thought that might have been a bit hot. But like Zulu tapes of like breaks cutting somehow up. We said, we've been at a party. And I don't know, we managed to get in somehow, and he went, all right guys, do you want a cup of tea?
Did you try running? Or?
Yeah, we ran down the lines, but
did you?
They caught us. I mean, they were sending dogs down the lines, which they probably can't do now. Bill Chard, who was like famous, he knew.
He was running after you as well, was he?
Well, he came out of the van and he was shouting, is that Myth 2? Is that Myth 2 you got? And then one of the others went, no, it's Tilt we want. We got caught and they raided our houses that night. Tilt goes to me, have you seen Scum?
Oh no.
But as soon as we got out of the van, they just hit you with it. You had to say, yes sir, no sir. The next day they shaved your head. So everyone had skinheads. Everyone looked the same. And then you each had an individual meeting with the governor, so he would like destroy you, try and put you down, and trying to destroy you.
Psychological.
Yeah. Like, he did a piece on Kilburn High Road Station.
That's what I heard about that.
So seeing that, a New York writer piece blew me away. And then Acid House came along, and everyone was hugging you. So I went from being mugged to being hugged. ColdCut were a massive influence to me as well.
Was it? Would you say Weatherall was a bit of an influence on you, or
a bit? Probably one of the biggest influences. Happy Jacks, yeah. And the smell when you went in, it smelled
like a mushroomy,
damp mold, damp smell. Right, yeah. And the whole atmosphere of the place was perfect. I ended up doing some backdrops for Saber Sonic as well. Was a sword going into a gravestone, and our inspiration was the death mix. We took samples of the MC going, it's Jersey.
Yeah, Jay. Because Cast When He Down with Giants.
He used to write Hayes before that. So they all came, Giants did some pieces under Northwick Park Bridge in Harrow. And seeing those in our area, Giants pieces, it was like another level of style.
It's the old school way. So lights, camera, action. On this week's show, I have someone who embraced the culture of hip-hop at an early age. He caught the graffiti bug and battered many London tube trains, and eventually in 1986 got nabbed and was the first person to do time for his crime. He also lived and breathed the club culture through the 80s and 90s and has been producing incredible music and has just dropped a new album called India Man. He also studies criminology, which I can't wait to talk about that as well, and gives positive talks in prisons. I'm very excited and truly blessed and honoured to have the one and the only Richard Sen, aka COMA, in the back.
Cheers.
Yes, COMA.
Cheers, Steve. It's really nice of you to do this. Thanks for the amazing intro. Wow.
Listen, I'm like, as you can tell, I've upped my game now. You know, we're taking this to the Hollywood hills.
Yeah.
I know you was impressed with the little cord around your neck, isn't it? And
getting very professional, yeah.
Sango. But one thing I didn't realise as well, you know, you're one of the Bronx dogs, and one of my favourite tunes was the tribute to Jazzy J.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to talk about, you know, your the Bronx dogs.
Right. Yeah, that was like late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
Myself and DJ Regal, who sadly passed away a couple of months ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I never knew that. Oh, big RIP, man. I never knew that.
Respect.
But yeah, that's an incredible track, and I'd love to talk to you about that a bit later. But yeah, anyone watching this as well, please share this around the old socials. We're going to kick it straight off, Rich, with, you know, whereabouts are you from and what was it like, you know, growing up as a kid?
Well, I grew up in Wembley. northwest London suburbs. Just went to a normal comprehensive secondary school, like Grange Hill type thing. Very multicultural where I grew up. A mixture, Afro-Caribbean, Indian, Jewish, English. So it was quite mixed. So my school was very mixed.
So there was quite a few different styles of cultures coming through.
Yeah, it was mixed, and it wasn't seen as anything different. It was all I knew. Yeah, it was the norm.
Yeah.
I guess a lot of places in London, a lot of areas in London were quite mixed, and it was just the norm to have different cultures or different influences, different races, religions, whatever. Religion wasn't as a big thing then as it is now, maybe. I think things have just got, identity politics and religion and have become a bit more, I guess, important because people, maybe they need to feel part of something when things are a bit more individualized now, and people need to feel like belonging and part of something. So maybe that's why. But yeah, school was just normal. I didn't really do that. I couldn't study. I wasn't good at revising, and I didn't do well in exams or anything. I think I got 1 O-level art.
Oh really? Yes. Well, that makes sense.
And then I did the retakes in the sixth form, and I got like English and maths and physics, I think.
London back then, quite, I would say, a lot more kind of community spirit than what it is now. I think, there was a lot more people out and about, and as a kid, you was out there playing in the dirt, and do you know what I mean? Yeah,
definitely. I'm not sure. I don't have kids, so I don't know how people behave with their kids, but from a very young age, we'd go out on our own. Me and my brother would go to the park and meet other kids and play, which was about a 5-minute walk from our house. Or we'd be playing on the streets with other kids, or hanging out, or getting up to mischief.
Yeah, it was nothing like, it was all playful back then. It weren't nothing like,
Yeah, and I didn't have any bad experiences. Can't remember any bad experiences. We just were allowed to just go out and get on with it. And I didn't see much crime or hate around where I lived anyway.
Yeah, there wasn't a huge amount of crime, and there wasn't this kind of knife culture and all that like there is now, was there? No, it wasn't nothing like what it is now.
No,
and I know back in Teddy Boy era and all that, there was quite a few knives flying around and all that, but it's become a lot more violent now, isn't it?
It seems to be. Getting a bit older, we did get involved in being robbed, and I was held up with a knife. Someone trying to rob me, and then another guy had a stun gun. One of those electric stun gun things, and he robbed me with that.
When was that? What, in the 80s?
So this was in 1980s, maybe 85, 86, when I was a teenager, around the graffiti time. I guess there was a lot of robberies going on. Maybe we can get onto that later.
Yeah, I want to talk about that later.
I think it was like bullying. Yeah. Basically,
they won't go through with actually putting the knife in you.
Well, this is it. I fronted it, and I was like, "No, you're not having my Walkman," and got off the bus, and nothing happened. But now I wouldn't.
No, you give it straight to him and take whatever I've got. Have it.
You can have it.
Yeah, it was totally different. But also, London back in the kind of, because you're from exactly the same era as me, we're exactly the same age. The 70s era of London, it wasn't developed. It was still quite industrial. It was only really 20 odd years after World War II. So it was very industrial. It wasn't polished like it is now. You go places like Soho, and it was a red light district.
Yeah.
It was red lights there, and it was full of prostitution and drug dealing, but it also, it did have a lot of soul and character to it as well.
Yeah.
It's quite grimy, wasn't it?
Definitely. Places like King's Cross were just hell. It was like what I imagine 42nd Street used to be like in New York. Drug dealers, junkies, prostitutes, homeless. A lot of it, just edgy, very edgy, King's Cross Station.
And you had them wicked clubs around the back. We'd go into that later, actually, like the Bagley's and the Cross.
Right, yeah.
You know, they were great clubs. But yeah, you know, London back in the 70s, it was very, very, you know, it wasn't developed, nothing like what it is today.
Exactly. I mean, Old Street, Shoreditch was just, there was nothing there.
There was nothing.
Back then. Yeah. Where in a lot of places there were things, just a lot of abandoned buildings, a lot of rubble about. It seems quite bleak, but I mean, I was just a kid. But looking back on some of the documentaries, and it was, yeah, it just seemed a bit depressing.
Well, you've only got to watch, like, one of my favourite films actually is Quadrophenia, and the second one is Babylon.
Right, yeah.
So you've only got to watch films like Babylon, and you know, that's what it was like. You know, it was filmed in, you know, in the late 70s around Deptford, Brixton, and them areas. It was very kind of, it was hard. Do you know what I mean? It was quite a hard time to, you know, to be brought up.
Yeah, there wasn't much money around.
There wasn't.
Most people weren't that well off.
And the mortgage rate went through the roof. I remember my mum and dad telling me, like, mortgage rate went up to something like, I don't know, like 10 or 15%.
Yeah.
And, you know, people were having to have, like, you know, two or three jobs to get by.
Right.
And do you remember, you'd have one bath a week. Remember? You'd have one bath a week and you'd feel, like, blessed because you'd had a bath.
I remember when we first moved, I must have been about 2, but we moved. But I remember there was an outside toilet.
That's right. Do you remember that?
You never had
in the winter,
inside.
In the winter, it's freezing.
The toilet was outside.
A lot of people had outside toilets, but also there was a lot of there was quite a bit of graff around as well, in terms of not graff in terms of connected within the hip hop kind of scene, but I'm on about graff in terms of, you know, like George Davis is Innocent.
Political stuff.
Political graff, a bit of racist, and also anti-racist graff as well.
Yeah, there was both. There was a lot of football.
Football graff?
Football graff. I remember walking to school, there was a bridge and it said people before profits.
Really?
So it was like against extreme capitalism, I guess. Putting profits before people, and that's exactly the same now. I mean, nothing's changed, really.
Going into the music thing, you know, what kind of music was you growing up on as a kid? Would it be in that kind of like two-tone music? And...
Well, that was the first, I guess, youth culture I got into. But music was always around. Like, my dad was a musician. He sang and played the guitar. So, and he had a band. I think they toured France in the 60s, maybe. And when he came from India in like 1959, and he said that they busked on the London Underground.
Wow.
When they came here. Him
what,
and his
actually
dad.
On the tube?
Yeah, him and his dad and my uncle, his brother. So we've got quite a musical family on that side. And he always played the guitar at the family get-togethers. But me and my brother hated it because he was my dad, and it was just like, oh, this is really horrible. And so I wasn't really into it. So it kind of put me off guitar-based music.
Oh wow! until you kind of understood it.
Yeah. So there was always music around. I mean, he had records and stuff. And then we lived in a house which was separated into 2 flats, and downstairs my uncle and my grandparents lived, and my uncle would play music a lot as well. So he'd play whatever the music of the 70s, disco, soul, reggae,
Motown.
Yeah, pop, whatever 70s pop stuff. They'd have parties. So when we were kids, we'd kind of go downstairs and see what all the adults were doing in their parties, kind of thing.
Do you know what? Back then, like going back to the community spirit thing.
Yeah.
I think, you know, families used to live a lot more closer together. They weren't widespread like they are now. You know, your family was always roughly in the same kind of area. So there would always be these kind of family parties going on. And they used to call them knees up. They used to have a knees up. And like, you know, always like New Year's Eve was always a big party for the family and friends, and you know, there was always parties.
Definitely, because I remember there'd always be parties when we were kids, either at our place or at my grandmother's place or at other, like my mum's cousin's place or other friends, and we'd just end up being dragged there and falling asleep or whatever, like in the bedroom, just being, I'll park them off there. And, but there was always parties, people or get-togethers. And even my gran, she used to call the word rave has been around for years. She used to go with going to a rave up.
Yeah, in the late 70s and early 80s, the music was great. You had this kind of punk music coming through, and then you had the new romantic futurist music, which I loved. Did you ever get into any of that kind of new romantic style music?
I mean, just the pop music, whatever it was
in general.
Thompson Twins, Human League, The Police. So I think my aunts, one aunt might have worked in some kind of record distribution or something. She'd bring in some records for us, and then my other aunt would also give me tapes or whatever of pop music, but it was whatever the 80s pop stuff was. So like Adam and the Ants, the Police, that kind of thing.
And that's an important point you've mentioned, is because back in the 70s, there was only 3 channels. You had BBC One, BBC Two, ITV. That's it. So on a Thursday night, I think it's 7 o'clock on a Thursday, on BBC One, you had a thing called Top of the Pops.
Yeah.
That was kind of like kind of main source, where you'd look forward to it on a 7 to like sit round the box to watch this Top of the Pops. And don't get me wrong, some of it, the music wasn't actually that great.
Yeah.
But every now and again, a nugget would come through where you think, yeah, what a great tune. So that was kind of our source, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. There wasn't much choice. So everyone had to watch that almost religiously every week. And I mean, at that age, it's kind of normal as a teen or early teen to be into the pop music. You're just kind of discovering music, I guess, that means something. With Top of the Pops, and then I think there was the charts on Radio 1 on the Sunday. It was like the chart rundown.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, something. And I remember taping, doing like the pause button taping everyone had to do just to get songs. You'd record the charts and just pause when the guy started speaking.
And listen to him through on your Walkman.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
So I remember
times.
doing that.
But let's get on to the big question. What was the kind of spark that lit that flame, to get you into hip hop? I mean, would it have been like from '79 with the Rapper's Delight and Curtis Blow and all that, or did that come a bit later with like electro or?
Yeah, I think electro. So electro was it was really big in our school, I guess, with the cooler kids, and break dancing kind of came around the same time.
Yeah, around 83,
84, with the electro comps. So I could break it, just about do windmill. I was good at turtle.
Without doing your back in. Yeah.
But I was okay. I was just almost good. But I remember we used to break to the electro compilations, the street compilations, and
big up to Morgan Khan for bringing them compilations out. Yeah, they were
so influential.
Yeah,
to all over the UK. So many kids were into that.
You know what the good thing about them as well is they was obviously mixed in, but instead of going to your HMV or your Groove Records or wherever it was, at the end of the day, you was only 13 years old. You didn't have much money. You could buy one of those compilations and you'd have all those wicked, electro tunes on the one album, which were all mixed in.
Yeah.
So, but we didn't have to go out there and, purchase like an import, which cost a lot of money. So that, it's quite an important point actually. Them Street Sounds albums were great.
And I think I might have got all of the up to about 5 and Crucial Electro 1 and 2, and it might have been the first time I actually heard any kind of DJ mix. I'm not sure. One of the first.
It could have been.
Yeah,
it probably
was Mastermind, I think, who did them.
Mastermind, it was. Yeah,
right,
that's right. I interviewed Dave VJ.
Right,
from Mastermind. Big up to Dave as well. And
yeah, I mean, I did go maybe to 1 or 2 Mastermind sound system things
over in Grove
back in the 80s.
That's right.
Yeah, I think they were from Northwest London or Grove or around Northwest.
Yeah. No, they were. But
so they were big in the 80s with
time.
people in our area for our age group, and And they did the electro comps. They mixed the electro comp.
They did, absolute legendary, and a big shout out to all of Mastermind as well. But yeah, in terms of like, you know, electro tracks, was there a few key tracks that would kind of give you, because back then you used to get goosebumps. I remember listening to Breaking in Space, Breaking in Space.
I mean, all of them. Hashim, obviously, Al Nafish.
Planet Rock.
Planet Rock.
Fit Beat.
Yeah, what was it? Pumpkin
All
and the All Stars.
Yeah.
The ones on from 1 to 4. Every single track is good. I liked. Even like, was it the Cutting Herbie and the B-boy breaks or something?
Yeah. And you had the B-boys, Beware, Two Sisters.
Xena on the upside. All of them. So they still sound great now.
In terms of, you know, videos as well that were influencing, I've talked to a lot of people, like, including myself. This has influenced me back in 1983 when the Buffalo Girls video come out. Did that have a little bit of an impact on you as well? I think
maybe that was one of the first. That's why. First time we all saw what hip hop was,
with the elements coming together as one with the DJ.
Was it Dondi doing the graffiti? Maybe Rocksteady breaking. Buffalo Gals was again another like pivotal
game-changing
moment of introducing the hip hop here. I guess Wild Style was before the maybe that came on TV after Buffalo Gals.
But Wild Style was another pivotal movie. Big up to Charlie Ahern and a big RIP to Patti Astor as well. Do you know we lost Patti Astor? I know.
I mean, I bought her book. I never met her.
Oh, it's a great book.
But she signed it.
Yeah, and me as well. Yeah, she signed it. I took her on a tour around Ladbroke Grove.
Really?
And showed her the graffiti.
Wow.
I had some amazing pictures of her. But yeah, it's a big loss.
I spoke to Charlie Ahern at the Beyond the Streets. He was there.
He was,
and we were talking about stuff, and he was really nice. Yeah. So those, I mean, the obvious things: Wild Style, Beat Street, was a big film again. The Flashdance video when Crazy Legs is in it, and it's just a little moment of like, what's this? Like,
and they're doing like the.
It's just begun.
The part. Oh, what a tune as well. In terms of, you know, catching the bug, catching the fever, you know, with Graff, and picking up a spray can, how did all that come about?
Well, I guess it's it moved on because hip hop kind of came in phases. First, breaking arrived, and then Subway Art. Once Subway Art came out,
that was it.
It was
It nailed it, didn't it? It nailed it.
It kind of showed us what was going on there that we never knew about, and apparently it's the most stolen book.
That's right. I heard that as well. I think Subway Art was one of the most written books in history.
So that was the Bible for most, I guess, every graffiti writer or of that era. So when that arrived, it was like you got entered a world of. It was like looking at another planet. Those kids, and they were kids, like 13, 14, 15, up to about 20. This art form is done by these kids over there. Wow. And the mix, so it's black, brown, white, whatever. This multicultural youth movement was something that just blew our minds.
It was something else, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you think about it as well, you know, these kids putting up this art in those conditions. Some of them pieces on those trains were like works of art.
Exactly. And what it's gone on to be, it's like probably the most important art movement of the 20th century was started by kids. It's been amazing.
Spraying up trains.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And now look, you've got your Banksy now all over the news, but this is where it started.
This is where it's come from.
I guess for graffiti, like with most writers, that's how I was introduced to it.
Was there any key pieces within Subway Art that kind of blew you away, apart from pretty much all of them?
I mean, obviously Scene I liked, Dondi, and the little panels, so like the Ernie one, which was kind of a bit different to the rest. There was something funky and different with that Ernie piece, which I really liked. It might have been later in the 80s. That kind of stood out for me.
But yeah, that is kind of, you could say, it was like our Bible.
It was.
Wasn't it?
It was. I guess most people who was into graffiti would say that. So that, I mean, that and Wild Style. I remember watching Wild Style and then wanting to do graffiti. Maybe going and buying some paint from a car shop and doing my first piece on a bridge in the park. That's what I remember doing.
A bit of duplicate or car
really
plan.
awful yellow with a brown outline. In the daytime, writing Rich. I was inspired by Wild Style. But then me and my brother took a trip to New York with my gran.
That was in 85,
85. So that was to visit relatives. We went on holiday there for a couple of weeks. And then seeing some of the names that we'd seen in Subway Art, like Scene, Duster, Quick throw-ups in Manhattan. There were Scene and Duster throw-ups all along the highway into the city. So kind of seeing it in the flesh. And then on the trains, there were about half of the trains still had graffiti on them. And we got some photos, but they're really bad quality. But I think it was a Doze piece, Doze from Rocksteady, who used to do graffiti or still does. We saw a piece by him. There was a New York writer called Cast, not the UK writer. I got a picture of that. So actually seeing it, and some of the insides were completely battered with tags.
So it was still kind of pretty much authentic.
It was seeing it in that as a teenager. Again, that trip just blew our minds. We went to the Fresh Festival in I think Shea Stadium maybe, and it was the first person on was LL Cool J. No one had heard of him. He came on first. Then Houdini, Fat Boys, and Run DMC lined. I guess I came back and wanted to copy just being immersed in hip hop and being obsessed with it. I remember I had I was going to Watford College doing some kind of visual communication diploma or BTEC or whatever it was, and I'd get the train to Watford every day, so it would park up at Watford, so I'd just tag the outsides with pen.
Oh really? With a pen?
Yeah, thinking, oh, this is how you do it, and the insides. And I ended up dropping out of college and just tagging and riding the trains, tagging.
Well, that's one thing I'd love to talk to you about is hand style. You know, what is the importance of a hand style? I mean, to me, it was everything. You know, the style and the style, the type of pens you was using to make it get that kind of etched, tag.
Definitely. I mean, it's the beginning, isn't it? A lot of people who don't know anything about graffiti always go, "Oh, I like the colourful stuff, but I don't like tagging." But you have to have all of it. It's where you start. You have to start with the tag to get good, and it's a way of showing style. So kind of being able to write your name stylishly first before then going on to develop it bigger. It's just like a little calling card, isn't it? Like that you put it, and it's a way of getting up. And graffiti, one of the main things is about getting your name out as much as possible, getting up. So all over London, all over the trains, buses. And now with 10 Foot all over the world.
Yeah, big up to 10 Foot.
Big up 10 Foot.
Yeah.
I think he's the most up writer of all time, maybe.
He's amazing. And Tox and Helch and
those guys.
Yeah, I mean, incredible.
So the tagging is so important, and nowadays you look on Instagram and you see all these amazing kind of hand styles, that how tagging's developed and how beautiful it is, and it's almost calligraphy now. But you have to have the tags. I love tags. I'd like a wall covered in tags sometimes rather than a street art.
I mean, you know, in London, I can only speak for London because I grew up in London, but, you know, we had some incredible hand styles out there, from your Artful Dodger,
yeah,
with the Old English calligraphy styles. You had your Form from London Giants, Cash, Tough Arts. There were Fume, I mean, Robbo. There were so many wicked hand styles.
Crash was a good one. He was Crash 151. Used to have a really cool down rock and normal tag, but he was one of the first really cool tags. I think those South London guys, the London Giants, as you said, those guys, Artful, they had really nice hand styles. They used to do a lot on the buses as well, I think.
Oh,
South London.
Yeah, well, I'm from South East, so yeah, we absolutely battered the buses. I used to see like the bus boys up and custom boys.
Custom boys, yeah. Whatever happened to them?
In terms of pens, did you have like a favourite pen, or you didn't care? You just, as long as it got your name up, you was writing it on a bus or a train?
Well, I guess starting with the old Eddings, which you could get anywhere.
850s,
Edding
yeah.
850s were just the starting point because they were thick markers. But as you kind of got to know, with the graffiti culture, people just learn from other writers. Okay, so you can make your own pens by using this bit of felt and this thing. Or there were these poster markers that came out in the 80s. We used to call them torches.
Torch pens.
They look like torches.
Yeah, that's what with the big end of
massive,
them.
Yeah.
Did you ever try and do the two-tone as well? Because we used to get the black marker and put in some like red ink
on one side, yeah.
And you used to and it used to come out with like a two-tone.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, we used to do that.
Did you?
Definitely.
You done that as well?
Yeah.
Was you writing COMA back then as well?
Well, I started writing Rich.
Oh, so you putting your own name
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think COMA started in about 1986 to write COMA.
How did you get your name COMA? Because it's such a great name, COMA. Do you know what I mean?
I think just the letters.
You love the letters?
Just like the letters. And there wasn't anyone else called COMA, so I just went with that and it stuck. I started to get up a lot. And it just went from and I thought, well, this is it now. I'm COMA.
Did you kind of love it when you see your name up on the buses or the tubes? Did you kind of get a buzz out of it?
Yeah, of course. What was it? There's some guy, Scheme, is it, in Subway Art?
Yeah.
When he goes, when he sees this thing and he goes, I was there, I bombed it. It's kind of, you really at that age. The respect you're getting as well from your peers, from other writers that we didn't get from our families or whatever at home. Validation and respect and a sense of belonging that we got from putting your name out there and being recognised by other writers. And as Scheme says, it was just for us and other writers. We didn't give a shit about the public. So that, I guess I needed it. Needed that
release,
a way of expressing myself, but also getting respect that I'd never had before, or validation. And you're somebody, this guy's somebody, which is at that age it was
a big deal, wasn't it?
It was a big deal, yeah.
And it was kind of, would you say, a little bit like it was like an addiction as well?
Definitely. Because
so instead of you like going towards possibly drugs, alcohol, I know we shouldn't be doing it, putting your name up on a tube, and I want to talk about the danger side of it and all that later. But it's kind of, at least you wasn't going down that kind of getting smashed out of your head on alcohol or drugs. Do you know what I mean?
Some writers were doing that as well.
Well, that's true, actually. That is true.
I remember we used to rack up.
But I mean, like, as a young kid, like 14.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit more positive than smoking skunk and drinking special brew. But we ended up doing that as well.
Special brew. yeah, we did.
There was a drink.
So true.
There was a drink called Night Train Express, which was in Getting Up. They mention it in Getting Up, like one of the Fabulous Five in the interview at the beginning of the book Getting Up. They mentioned this drink called Night Train Express, and so Tilt told me about it. He goes, that's bombing juice. It's got a train on the front.
No,
he had a train on the
Seriously?
front of it. Yeah.
How did you get hold of that?
And it was difficult to get hold of here. It was more an American thing. But the version here was Thunderbird.
That's right, Thunderbird. Do you remember that?
Yeah, so Thunderbird.
And White Lightning.
Yeah.
Oh,
so Thunderbird was like the alternative, the UK version, the Night Train Express. So we'd call that bombing juice. So we'd rack up a lot of Thunderbird.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and drink it while going painting. I remember me and Till actually were so drunk once we were walking down the train lines and we just fell asleep a lot on the side of the tracks.
Like, were you so hammered?
Yeah, we just fell asleep for a bit.
Well, but train's going past you.
But on the edges kind of thing, and then woke up again and carried on walking. I get so drunk.
You just fall asleep. That is mad.
Yeah, but for younger people, it's a bit more positive than going down the drugs and although people did get involved in that later on.
Also, I know you was tight with Tilt, and Tilt was kind of like, I suppose, what your kind of partner that used to go around. How did you and Tilt hook up?
I can't remember, because
is Tilt from like Wembley as well?
It was from Edgware.
Yeah, over that way.
Yeah. So I think I had another writing partner called Reem, who was from who was the first person who took us to the train yards. So Reem took me to the train yards in 1985 in Wembley Park, and then I would, or both of us would ride the lines, the Metropolitan lines, and so eventually we got to meet other writers, and so Cast and Tilt, they were all from Harrow, Pinner, that way. So they had their scene.
Vinyl Junkies as well.
Vinyl Junkies were from Hayes, so I met them a bit later on. They weren't really, like, I still see Clive, but they weren't really part of the train scene, like running around, doing yards and stuff like that.
Heavily.
Yeah. So there would be a writer's bench in Harrow. So either Harrow McDonald's, everyone would meet outside. Harrow on the Hill McDonald's. So you could probably turn up on your own and you'd meet writers there. And that's probably how I got to meet Tilt and Cast.
Who were some of the writers that were going to the writers' bench?
Cast, Nice One, Tilt, Huz, then the other guys, Kiss 42, Jano, Desire, Right One, loads, but I can't think of everyone.
Big up to all them.
Yeah. So it was like a meeting place for writers from the Met Line. And then people from Grove would come down there, people like Foam and Hate, and they would pass by. It became quite famous, yeah.
I mean, those London tubes were getting a battering, especially around the kind of 86 and 87 years. What was it like? Was it kind of, did you plan to go, like the night before to go into yard and like start hammering or did you just think, right, let's do this one night, let's go in and just do our thing?
A bit of both. Well, you kind of learn from other writers how to get in and what the best possible ways of getting in train yards are. But I remember, I'll give you one story. One of the first times we did Rickmansworth, I think the Chrome Angels did the Rickmansworth site. There's a little one parked up. I think they were the first to do it in 85 or whatever. I remember seeing the Chrome Angels train. There's just the stain of it and wondering who did it and where. And later on I found out it was Rickmansworth. But we didn't know anything about Rickmansworth. We thought trains parked up at Watford all night, and we intended, so there must have been about 10, 15 of us, Tilt, Cast, those guys. So we went to Watford and waited around when you get out the station, so we thought we'd wait around outside until it was the right time to go back in and paint the trains. And we get back in and there were no trains. So we're like, what do we do now? So we walked up the train lines again, where there's a junction, and then then it goes towards Rickmansworth. You go back towards Rickmansworth. So we thought, well, Rickmansworth, it was probably about 45-minute an hour walk along the train lines. So we got into Rickmansworth. There was a hut. Well, we got to the yard. There was a workman's hut just outside the yard. So we sat in there waiting until it was safe, until the workmen had gone or the cleaners had gone out the train.
What time was this, like 11, 12 at night?
Yeah, maybe 1 a.m. So they'd probably be in there till about 1 or 2. So I think even Tilt might have even had some music. I thought that might have been a bit hot. But like Zulu tapes of breaks cutting up, like Islam or Bambata or all those guys. I remember us listening to that it was like we were having a party in the workman's shed
and waiting
before going in.
Waiting to do your mission. Brilliant.
And so we went in, finally, there were a load of us, and we all just was let loose on the trains. And I remember Mac was a Chinese guy from Harrow, a writer, and there was a light flickering, and Mac said, "Yo, Tilt, I've timed that light, and it goes on and off every 10 seconds or whatever." And then Tilt was going, "Shut up, you plonker, what are you on about?" What the hell are you on about? It was just flickering.
That's brilliant.
So we did it.
Such a laugh.
It was one of the best experiences of my life.
That's so
and so we did the train. So obviously no one got any photos. Back then no one had cameras.
Did you used to go like balaclavaed up or anything?
No.
There wasn't really
there weren't cameras in the train yards back then. So it was so easy. There was no one in there, no security, no cameras. So we got away. We must have spent a couple of hours in there. I did a piece, everyone did a piece. There were no pictures. No one got photos. And then about 4 or 5 in the morning, it started to get light. So we'd walk back up the train lines to Moore Park. So there was a waiting room, an indoor waiting room thing on Moore Park. So we got in there and then just all kind of crashed out at about 5, 6 before it was open. And then the station guard came in at about 6 in the morning, opened up, and he goes, "Oh, how did you lot get in here?" And we just blagged it. Somehow we said, "Oh, we've been at a party, and I don't know, we managed to get in somehow." And he went, "All right, guys, do you want a cup of tea?"
And a biscuit.
Yeah,
that's so
and he brought us all tea.
That's hilarious.
He made us all tea after we bombed the yard.
With paint all over your hands. That's so funny. That's
that was such a mad memory to have. But that stood out as how we did it. And then from then onwards, we found out from other writers how to enter Gloucester Road or that kind of thing, or Neasden, or me and Tilt actually got caught red-handed in Stanmore, so we did it wrong. That's how we got caught.
Was it?
Yeah, we went.
So it was. So you both got banged up for it, didn't you?
Yeah. So again, we wanted to be the first to do a whole car top to bottom. I don't know if it had been done before. This was 1986, and the Jubilee lines are small bubble trains, we used to call them. So it was a bit easier to do a top to bottom on those trains. So we went to Stanmore Yard. I don't know, I just followed Tilt. He knew how to get in. And we literally I just put 4 lines up just to kind of get a rough shape. And it was raided by police vans, dogs.
Really?
Yeah.
Straight within. How did they know?
Basically, someone had seen us go in. So either a workman or a member of staff had seen us enter the yard, and they'd called the police. So they came straight.
Did you try running? Or?
Yeah, we ran down the lines, but
did you?
They caught us. I mean, they were sending dogs down the lines, which they probably can't do now. And it might have been Chard, who was like a legendary British Transport Police officer, like the CID graffiti squad head, Bill Chard, who was like famous. He knew.
He was running after you as well, was he?
Well, he came out of the van and he was shouting, "Is that Myth 2? Is that Myth 2 you got?" And then one of the others went, "No, it's Tilt we want." And so they got Tilt. So we all.
I mean, we shouldn't laugh about it, but it
was funny.
Yeah.
But we got caught red-handed on trying to run away. They came from all directions. They had dogs. So we got caught, and they raided our houses that night.
Really?
I'm not sure. They must have got some kind of woke a magistrate up or a judge or in the middle of the night
to get the pass to get through.
So I had to wake my mum and dad up at about 4 in the morning in handcuffs with police saying, "We're here to raid your house."
And how did your mum and dad take that?
I mean, that was probably one of the worst. My dad always used to say that was one of the worst things you could do, and he always brought it up. So then they looked, they found all my paint, they found piece books with outlines, with COMA all over, or maybe I wasn't even writing COMA then, I can't remember, with pieces and tags and everything. So they gathered all this evidence. We were put on bail, and then when we got sent to Harrow Magistrates Court, he gave us 2 months detention centre. So we were the first to get sent down for it. And me and Tilt just looked at each other in shock and were with our mouths open like, what the we didn't expect that at all.
Was it all in the papers and all that?
I'm not sure. It might have been in the local papers. So it was all quite a shock and unexpected. So then they went, take them down. So we went down into the cells underneath Harrow Magistrates Court, and Tilt goes to me, have you seen Scum?
Oh no. You must have been like petrified.
I know. We were shit.
Oh man, don't. That must have been a very low point, yeah.
It was. It was like, it was almost, we were just in shock, so couldn't take it all in. But then they took us in a van straight to the detention centre, Hollesley Bay, which is in Ipswich. So it was a good few hours drive, and we were driving through Harrow and kind of seeing people we knew in the street and going, oh my God, we're being taken to prison or to jail or whatever. That was the worst bit, actually, just going there, not knowing, and like not knowing what to expect.
And then when you was there,
yeah,
you know, what actually happened? I mean, was it like Scum, or was it like it was all right?
It wasn't as bad as Scum.
Nah.
But as soon as we got out of the van, they just hit you with it. You had to say yes sir, no sir. You answered by your surname, Sen. You had to march everywhere.
Did you?
Yeah, it was like boot camp.
Right.
Quite like the army, I guess, army discipline. So the next day they shaved your head. So everyone had skinheads. Everyone looked the same. And then you each had an individual meeting with the governor. So he would like destroy you, try and put you down, just humiliate you, going, you're a piece of shit, you're weak, you're this, you're this.
Trying to break you down.
Yeah, trying to break you down and trying to destroy you.
Psychological.
Yeah, I think it was.
Thing.
Trying to destroy everyone's ego so they weren't full of themselves. And no one is individual because everyone's got the same like shaved head, and you just do as you're told, and it's just discipline. So that's how it was. The worst thing about it was the PE, like the physical education. We'd have to do it every day, and it was the most extreme, like, pain, I guess.
Really? So what, they made you do drills, like, you know,
it was
you have
circuit
to do like
training.
50 press-ups.
Yeah. So different exercises going all the way around the gym. So like weights, press-ups, squats, that kind of thing. And you had to do it in you had to do one circuit. And the first one you do was called the green circuit, so it was the least difficult. It was the lowest.
And then went up to what, the red?
And then red was the highest. So we started off with one green, and you'd see people like who couldn't do it puking up and things like that. And the screws, the officers just fucking giving you a slap.
Yeah, saying, come on.
Yeah, you've got to do it.
You've got to do it.
And so, I mean, I managed to do it somehow. And it kind of taught me that no matter how hard shit is, you can get through it.
Yeah.
So it gave you these good like life lessons of like.
Do you think that was a bad thing, or do you think that what might have been like maybe a positive thing to encourage you to do that?
But both.
Bit of both.
But by the end of it, I was doing 3 red circuits. So
when you come out, you was like you was ripped. And
really
you was like
fit, healthy.
Yeah.
What do they call it? Buff.
Buff. That's a graffiti term, isn't it? Buff. Yeah, you come out buff. Yeah.
But it didn't work, so it had the opposite effect. It didn't stop us doing it. We got worse. We just did it worse.
Really?
So it made us more like angry and resentful and anti the system. Yeah. So it didn't work, but as a life experience, it was really good. to teach you some discipline, and to go to the extreme, go to the edge, and you can get through it. Because most people don't experience those things. So just having the most difficult things in front of you and managing
to overcome
it. Yeah, to be able to get through it. Because the first time I ever did this PE stuff, I thought there's no way I'm going to be able to do it, but you can do it. So in that sense it was all right. It was a good experience, but not for punishment. It didn't work, and now they banned it since.
What when did it kind of come to a stop then? When did you stop?
Well, I kind of grew out of it naturally. So we had another court case. There were a load of us this time in Harrow, maybe 15, 20 of us. We were doing some graffiti. Someone was taking photos who said that they were going to do some kind of book. The guy put the film into the chemist, and the chemist called the police. Yeah,
the chemist glassed you up?
Yeah, so that's how we all got caught. It was this graffiti gang, and that was all in the papers.
Who was who got done for that?
So there was me, Tilt, Nice One, maybe Huz, Dizzy, a few others I can't remember. Some of them got off, and some of us got another prison sentence.
Really?
So I got 6 months this time. It went to Acton Crown Court, and I got 6 months. But because it took so long, the court case took so long, it took a year to come up for final sentencing. I'd stopped and given up anyway by that time.
Right.
So I stopped in 1988. I did my last train piece with Hate at Gloucester Road in 1988. Then Acid House came along.
And that took over.
Yeah, to ecstasy, going out partying every week. That took over, and I left the graffiti behind, but I still had this court case hanging over me. So they sent me to prison for 6 month sentence. I only do 3 months out of that. And and it was pointless. Again, another complete waste of time, pointless. It didn't have any effect because I'd stopped anyway. So I don't know, I just grew out of it naturally, and because of other things.
Moved into the Acid House era.
Yeah.
Which I can't wait to chat about in a minute. But talking of, you obviously had your the ones like hitting up the trains and all that, but you also had your kind of artistry style. So your Chrome Angels, the Supreme Team, Tough Arts, Non-Stop Art, these kind of artists that were putting up incredible work, especially like Mode 2 with his characters, and Zachy D, Scribbler, Artful Dodger. Did you like looking at the art side of things on the walls? Yeah,
well, I guess that was the first things like Chrome Angels in Covent Garden. The Chrome Angels pieces in Covent Garden. I think that was the first really good, stylish graffiti, UK graffiti I saw. And it was inspirational to everyone, just style wise, how lettering and characters, and London Giants as well were one of the first.
Giants were amazing. I mean, Giants were obviously from my manor over in South East, but Jap 302, Juicy, Shane 181, Zone, Form, all them lot were another incredible. Did you ever go down to Dulwich and check out Controlling the City?
No, I never really went south.
Oh, really?
But so they came because Cast, he used to.
Because Cast went down with Giants.
He used to write Hayes before that, and he was in Giants as Hayes.
That's right.
So they all came. Giants did some pieces under Northwick Park Bridge in Harrow, and seeing those in our area, Giants pieces it was like another level of style. And Cast was probably the best at style from our area.
Your neck of the woods.
Yeah, he had the style, and he was prolific with it as well. So that kind of stuff influenced us as a style. But it almost seemed like there were two kinds of writers. There were the train writers, and then there were the ones who were a bit more concentrating on
the art form.
Bigger, colourful pieces, doing big walls, that kind of thing.
Taking their time in the detail.
Exactly, which you can't really do on trains.
No. Totally different. It's a totally different ball.
But I gravitated more towards the trains because of the excitement. and the fun and the buzz that you got and the whole culture behind it, the subculture, the illegality of racking up, and
it felt a bit more like
an adventure.
You was a graffiti writer.
Yeah, it was more adventurous, and because of the traditions that we copied from America, from New York, like trains are the holy grail. You had to do trains, if nothing else can compare. So, I mean, I know Pride and Zaki, and I remember, Pride was from Wembley, from the Chrome Angels, so he did this piece on the back of a youth centre in Wembley, and I remember seeing it. It just said style, and it was so like stylish, artistic. I guess. So flavour, another level of style.
Beautiful, like a masterpiece.
So we looked. I mean, I looked at him in awe, as wow, he's a style master, and he's a really nice guy as well.
Great, big up to Pride. What a lovely guy. And Mode, I actually had Mode 2 in my cab. I interviewed Mode.
Okay, I've never spoken to Mode. I don't know Mode. But...
Yeah, no, it's a great interview and a great outlook as well on life. In terms of locations, I mean, there were some great spots all over London. Round my side, South East London, you had Woolwich, the Old Kent Road, and there was loads of places. Obviously, over North London, West London, East London. There was some incredible spots, like where Graff was going up on walls. I mean, where was the key spots you was going to? Obviously, it must have been the Westway, innit?
Yeah,
that was such a great place,
like the Mecca, for graffiti writers, just to meet.
And the amount of work going up under there, under the bridge, the DVA, the Velvet Angels, and London Giants, and Chrome Angels. There was so much.
Those pillars, and pillars. The wall. I think the Scam did one with Chase called, it said Reckless. That was quite an early one. It became, because of the Futura piece that was there, it became a spot. And obviously it's perfect. Just the walls. There are so many like straight walls that you could paint on. It became the spot for everyone to go. I used to have family in Bayswater. So we'd go there every couple of weeks or every weekend or whatever. And so I'd take a walk down to Grove to under the Westway and eventually meet writers as well. So I kind of got to know the Grove writers, like Hate, Foam, Rio, Casby, Scam, those guys. So I kind of became part-time Grove as well, and used to hang out down there a lot. Under the Westway. It's
such a buzz over there. Walking over the bridge from Westbourne Park, that's how I used to get into over the bridge, the little bridge that went over into where the under the flyover. Yeah. It was such I could feel it now. You'd walk over that bridge. You'd look to the left, to the right, mainly to the right of the bridge actually, looking down, and you'd think, I've got to go and see that piece down there, and you'd go down there and walk along the rubble, and you'd be checking out all this amazing art, which a lot of it, and also the cans. This is around '86, so this is when it was really popping off over in the Westway around '86, and you'd see this incredible work, especially they was using like the Bunlack was coming in now, so the colours and all that were getting better, and there was some incredible pieces under there.
Definitely, there was so much good stuff, and just the way it looked as well. It was like this concrete kind of perfect spot, and the vibe with the train running in the background.
Yeah, it's like an art gallery, wasn't it? It was like
so people could see from the train into the under the Westway.
The closest we could have got to it, it might have reminded us as maybe somewhere like within the Bronx, like, because there was a lot of rubble, and
that's it.
It's not like it is now, all polished. It was kind of quite gritty and grimy, wasn't it?
And you had to kind of go through fences and stuff to get to different parts of it, and it was similar to New York. The way it was, the atmosphere there. Maybe it was a bit more mixed. And just the way it looked,
it's quite edgy as well, wasn't it?
Definitely.
I heard stories. It didn't happen to me. I mean, nearly happened to me, but I got recognised by someone, so I got kind of like a pass through the clubbing days. Someone recognised me through clubbing around the '86 times when I used to go clubbing. But you know, it could be quite edgy. You know, you could get robbed. You know, people getting taxed for their pens or their cameras.
I mean, the writers got robbed as well there was this gang called Tape Tone. They were local roughnecks who used to pick on some of the writers. So I'd got robbed by them. I know Hate did, and even Foam. So, and all of us, I think, at one point might have got robbed by Tape Tone. So we would be looked at as stupid little writers. But it was nothing. It was like it was almost, they weren't armed, and it was like a form of bullying. So there
was more of them than
a pound or something like that, or £2.
Yeah.
And we didn't have anything to rob. But then it got a bit darker later on, like a year or two later on, where other writers were robbing writers who'd come from outside London to see the graffiti, and then they'd get robbed. So it all got a bit dark, but it started off quite positive.
Yeah.
But again, there were so many people from so many different backgrounds, and Grove, a lot of people from one-parent families or rough upbringings. It had that edge to it, Grove. There was something about it that made it kind of, I don't know, special. Under the Westway, they had an atmosphere, and so much good graffiti was done there. Yeah.
Oh, it was a great spot, and there was also another spot I used to go to as well, Latimer. They used to call it. It was near Latimer Road train station. There was a place there at the back where I used to go as well to check out the Graff.
I know some people did. I don't think I ever did anything there, but that was another spot. And then Trellick Tower became a kind of Hall of Fame, or there was a Hall of Fame on Goulburn Road, the Pit. So the Pit was another place where you could hang out, and people were almost allowed to do it. Graffiti there, and it became a Hall of Fame. That was all within the same area.
Because another thing as well, back then there wasn't these kind of spots where there are now in London where it was legal. So, you know, you had to put your mark up on like industrial, like, you know, estates, or like, you know, on brick walls and whatever.
And it was a lot less tolerated back then. Now where there's street art everywhere and it's cool, and like Hackney 100%. Wick, anyone can do it in Hackney Wick. Yeah,
you drive down the road, I'll see someone painting up, and police are driving by. Oh yeah, he's all right. He's just spraying up a bit of art or a bit of graff on the wall. Back then, like, you get proper nabbed, didn't
I know. Back then, people would call the police. People would be looking at you, going, "What are they doing?" That kind of thing, and how the majority, maybe, and it was Thatcher as Britain, and how the majority of the people looked down on hip hop or different ethnicities and kids, and how it was just frowned upon almost.
You know what it is? They didn't want that unity. They didn't like that. They wanted everyone divided.
Yeah,
a bit like what
now.
They're doing now.
Yeah,
That's right, 100%. They didn't like unity. But also another wicked thing about the Westway was the ledge.
That Royal Oak, or so.
Yeah, Royal Oak.
Royal Oak.
That was great. I remember going past it on the train and just always looking at the big pieces on the side of that.
I mean, I think Artful Dodger did an artful in colourful calligraphy writing there.
And Fume as well. Fume done a massive. I'm sure Fume done a huge. Big shout out to Fume, by the way.
Yeah, I don't think I ever met Fume, but he's a legend.
Yeah, I met Fume a few times back in the day. I went up to Wood Green to meet all them lot. Fume, ID, Bomber, and all them lot.
Okay.
They were serious writers as well.
Yeah. Those guys just took it on, carried on, and just went wild on the trains. But that Royal Oak spot, because the train went past, so it was visible from being on the train. It attracted, maybe Artful and those guys were one of the first. I can't remember who else did it. And because those guys did it, everyone else followed. And it became the place where people would do, you couldn't really do wildly colourful piece, just big silver blockbusters or throw-ups, just to be visible from the train. It became a spot. Yeah,
it was a great spot.
I never actually got to the top of the ledge.
Never.
I never went up to the ledge.
It was high, wasn't it?
We just did from trackside, that wall kind of thing. Yeah.
And another great spot as well, we touched on it earlier, was Covent Garden. I mean, that was another great spot where, you get the breakers, the graffiti writers, everyone, the poppers, everyone was meeting there, in the Covent Garden location to like basically, have a chat about what Graff they've done, or there'd be buskers like, you'd have your London All-Stars up there, Live to Break, before then Sidewalk and all that. That was an amazing spot as well, wasn't it, Covent Garden?
It was the meeting place for hip hop in London on a Saturday afternoon. I'm not sure. I never went to Spats.
Oh, you never went to Spats?
No. So maybe was that on around the same time?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So
yeah,
maybe
it was on
people would come
Saturday afternoon
after Spats to go to Covent.
After Spats, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I never went. I didn't know. I heard about it, and Westwood and those guys would always
Spats was great.
mention it. But
Yeah.
I don't think I ever went to Spats.
Yeah,
I wasn't even into clubbing back then or going to clubs that much. Maybe warehouse things back then, but Covent was a social place for writers from all over London. So you'd go there and meet people from North London and South London and East, who I didn't know, who we didn't know. So you'd have loads of different crews, writing crews, from different parts of London who'd all get together.
And also, a little bit further down the line, it didn't become just a London thing. There was also writers from outside London coming, and breakers and all that, coming into Covent Garden as well. And even from New York, I mean, Rocksteady crew.
Did they
come over to Covent Garden? Yeah, and
Really?
Poppin' Pete and...
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. When they was like touring in London, they went down to Covent Garden.
I guess because of the graffiti there as well. So you had the Chrome Angels and Trailblazers before that, and then T-Kid did some pieces there.
That's right.
When he was here.
That was 85.
Was it? Yeah, 85.
Yeah.
So that was just naturally became the place
and
to
Mode,
just hang out.
And Mode done that piece, character of T-Kid next to the T-Kid piece that T-Kid put up. It was a character of T-Kid, wasn't it? When he was younger,
right.
with
the
spray
spray
can.
can.
Do you remember
Yeah.
that?
That around that time was really, really exciting. The New York guys like Brim,
big shout out to Brim. Yeah, Brim was another one coming over early doors. I interviewed Brim in the cab. Amazing guy.
Yeah,
big shout out to the Brim stuff.
And seeing he did a piece on Kilburn High Road Station.
That's what I heard about that.
So seeing that, a New York writer piece down on the same line which goes up to where we lived, blew me away. And it was very influential, that seeing the New York guys coming over here to bring their culture over here and kind of having that connection,
Without a shadow of a doubt.
And Covent was just another place for that, I think. But then you had the breakers and rappers as well, UK guys. But I didn't really know or get involved too much with that. For me, it was just the writers.
Moving on now to like the West End kind of clubbing. As I say, we grew up in the same area. It was probably same era. We was probably growing up on the same. We're probably going to the same kind of clubs. It was still very underground then. But there was some wicked clubs in London. You had clubs like Raw, the Wag, Westworld parties, the Mud Club at Busby's, the Astoria Delirium. This is just before like acid house kicked off.
Exactly.
This is around the 86 kind of year. So in the clubs they was playing, it was a combination of hip hop and funk. So was you going to any of those clubs?
I might have been too young, so I wasn't into clubbing or that much. I mean, I'd go to all the jams. So Westwood would do a lot of hip hop jams. So because Scam knew him quite well, we'd go to a lot of Westwood jams. He'd do things in parks. There was a skate park in Ladbroke Grove or just off Westbourne Park that he did something. Meanwhile Gardens,
yeah.
And then he did something in Wormwood Scrubs.
That's right.
And just other Westwood things. And then there were warehouse parties going on around the same time. Yeah. Like 87.
Yeah.
And there was a guy called Nutriment who did London Bridges Falling Down, the UK electro track. Scam knew him as well. So he used to do a party called Rockbox, a warehouse party. And I remember going to one, and it was on the top of a roof. I can't remember where, but he'd set up his sound system on the top of a roof, and he'd have all these weird places that he'd do warehouse parties. There'd be other type warehouse things. So the music would be rare groove, funk, rare groove, and hip hop with early house thrown in. That's right.
Well, a bit of Nitro Deluxe or the Jackin' Farley Jack Master.
I hated house back then. Yeah. I thought, this is horrible. I don't get it. It's just boring and repetitive. Just doesn't. I was into Public Enemy or whatever it was. I hated house music. But I remember being taken to Delirium. I can't remember who with. In the Astoria, and the DJ was in a cage, wasn't he? Somewhat in this cage.
Well, we used to go and they used to have the back room of Delirium was in the back room, and that's where we'd be, where they'd be playing more like the hip hop and all that.
Okay, I can't remember, but I just remember being in the Astoria before Acid House.
Yeah.
And it was either Noel or Morris Watson or Jay Strongman or someone like that.
Yeah.
One of those guys.
They were amazing DJs. Mark
Moore, yeah, those guys. But I wasn't really into going to the club. I never went to the WAG. What was the Mud Club? I never went to the Mud Club.
Really? So a lot of writers went to Mud Club.
I know.
Yeah.
And
breaking made a revival. It come back out again around '86, and people were breaking in Mud Club.
Right, I heard all this, but I don't know. I just wasn't into the West End clubbing thing.
Right.
Maybe I was just too young, and graffiti took over.
You had the fever for that.
Yeah, I was more into going painting at night.
Something you touched on as well was Bad Meaning Good.
So I guess that was still the graffiti time. Yeah. So Bad Meaning Good.
That was '87, wasn't it? That come out.
Yeah. So, but for people who don't know, Bad Meaning Good was a documentary made by the BBC. It was part of their Open Space series. And it was the Bad Meaning Good was a documentary on UK hip hop. So it had we featured in it the graffiti writers. It had rappers, London Posse maybe.
Yeah, Bionic. Yeah. Because there was that scene with Bionic and Sipo in Westwood's. I think he had like a Ford Sierra going down the old road. Yeah. And Sipo's beatboxing.
Yeah.
Remember in the back of the Sierra.
But I don't think it had much breaking in it.
Yeah, it was going into a different era.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
So they concentrated on graffiti and the music. Was it DJ Fingers cutting up Tom Jones?
Yeah, his fingers in his bedroom.
And it was it was through Westwood. So Scam knew Tim Westwood, who was the connection with the BBC. He was probably something to do with making it, and they asked a few writers, myself, Hate and Foam, to go to the BBC and talk about graffiti while they showed our photos. So that was it all in this documentary. The Scam and Pride were actually on it, being filmed themselves, talking. Our faces weren't shown. We just spoke whilst they showed the photos. And
didn't you want to go and film?
No, because we were
prolific.
Still doing active illegally.
Yeah.
So they put our tags at the end of it, COMA, Foam, Hate. But because it was on the BBC, it went all over the UK. So that, just being on Bad Meaning Good, got me and a lot of all the writers that were on there so much fame and exposure to all over the UK that no one had heard of us before. I remember meeting someone at a job, and he used to do Graff, and I said, "Oh yeah, I'm COMA," and he went, "What? Bad Meaning Good COMA?" And I was like, "Yeah."
He asked for your autograph. You put a COMA tag up.
So it was like another level of fame that we all got, that was unexpected, that we didn't even think about.
You went from all city to all UK.
Yeah. So people, other writers all over the UK
started to find out about
us. But if it wasn't for that, I don't know if they would have. So it was quite influential to kids into hip hop in the UK around 87.
And I'll tell you what, as well, in 87 was the Public Enemy concert over in Hammersmith. Did you go to that?
Well, there's another story behind that. Basically, I guess I can talk about it now. There were a lot of robberies going on, apparently, as we mentioned, under the Westway. And I got involved with some other people who took part in some robberies. They robbed these guys for their Public Enemy tickets. So we all got Public Enemy tickets somehow. I mean, I was just there. So we went to the Hammersmith gig, and then there were groups of lads in the gig steaming. So steaming is like a gang of people robbing other people. So there was a group of guys steaming through the crowd at the Public Enemy gig. So I got robbed in the Public Enemy
gig. Actually in the gig, not on the tube?
No, in the gig.
Wow.
It's almost like karma. I got my tickets by people robbing someone else, and then I get robbed in the pub. It was like dog eat dog. I got robbed in the Public Enemy gig.
What did they take off you?
I don't know. Whatever it was, I just felt hands in my pocket. It was, I don't know, £5 or not even that. A bus pass or something.
Red bus Rover. That's crazy.
So this was all that was going on, and Public Enemy were very militant.
Yeah.
So it kind of made a lot of people into Public Enemy more militant. And as you were saying, it was like the fight the power. That was all going on. So that the Public Enemy thing happened, and then Acid House came along. And everyone was hugging you. So I went from being mugged to being hugged.
Brilliant.
That's why I kind of, Public Enemy blew me away. Mugging to hugging. Public Enemy blew me away when the first Public Enemy album came out. It was like, this is something from the future. The sounds that they were rapping over, it was so powerful. Like the music was so abstract and so mad. It was like there was always noises in the background.
You know, the Bomb Squad, man. Those little, the production from the Bomb Squad.
I think I read an interview and they said that they'd jam with just loads of samples, putting bits together, just jam files, and then just take a certain section of it and loop that. So musically, wow, it was amazing. But because it got so dark, it was easy to leave that world behind. And when Acid House and Ecstasy came along, it was like no-brainer. Hold on, I'm going to get robbed, and this is all dark and moody. This is all peace and love and positive. Yeah.
Well, let's move into that era now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot more we can touch on the other stuff. I mean, we could talk about Ultramagnetic MCs and Eric B. and Rakim and loads of stuff.
Those guys we were all listening to in about 87. Yeah. Eric B. Rakim, Ultramagnetics.
Incredible. Big shout out to Said G, who I've interviewed, and
Chuck
D,
that.
And Chuck D as well.
Wow.
I've interviewed Chuck D and his brother and James from the S1Ws in the back of my cab. Yeah, incredible. But yeah, let's move on to this Acid House tip. So basically, when Acid House and house music started to really kick off around 87, 88, and people started to discover, bits and bobs. This music, you'd go into a club and it was really kind of peaceful. It was like a spiritual awakening. There was no trouble. And it was just so much of an energy, and it was all positive, wasn't it? Is that how that made you feel?
Exactly. It was what I imagined the hippie Summer of Love thing was, but it was for our generation. And it was all ecstasy induced. So everyone was on ecstasy or acid or both. And that's what kind of created this energy, positive energy. In the dancing as well. You could see there's a video of one of the orbital raves called Energy, and you can see how everyone is just doing their own thing. A lot of movement, a lot of energy in the dancing, and everyone was kind of, because of ecstasy, everyone was kind of opening up and loving towards each other.
And what it was like basically it was like one nation under a groove. It was like you know, you'd have like your football hooligans where back in the 70s and early 80s, you know, there'd be, you know, like trouble on the terraces and all that, to suddenly, you know, they'll be hugging like a hippie or whatever.
Exactly.
And like everyone would be getting on, and it'll be like, there would be no drama. Exactly.
Or ones who used to be like racist ICF or something, who would hug me and go, well, forget about all that.
Yeah.
And again, I think I mentioned this on another interview. It was everyone from aristocrats to criminals and everything in between. Different races, different classes,
100%,
different backgrounds.
100%.
All together.
Yeah.
No violence.
There was no trouble. There's no mimicking. Everyone just literally, once they had the, you know, the little pill and...
or even if, I mean, a lot of the time I didn't even take ecstasy, but it was just the atmosphere around it was so good. And well, we'd never ever seen anything like that. Coming from the darkness of hip hop and how it got dark into that, it was, I think, just something all came together at one time. The drug, obviously.
You know what it reminded me
of? The music.
It kind of reminded me of the early hip hop years when it was peace, unity, love, and having fun via the Zulu Nation.
Yeah.
There was a lot more unity in the early days of hip hop around kind of 82, 83, 84. Then it started to get a bit more kind of gangsterish and a bit more trouble. And then when house music come in the acid house scene, then it was kind of that kind of unity feel again.
Yeah.
Where it felt like people were kind of unifying again and everyone was together as one.
Definitely, but I think the ecstasy made it more intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
And just that, what it spawned. So a whole industry, a dance music, billions of dollars that came out of it. Dance music, electronic music industry. Now it's like 100 festivals on every year all over the UK.
It's massive now, isn't it?
It's like, yeah.
I mean, the house
music.
Huge. Yeah.
And everyone's a DJ.
And I remember, like we used to give our mate, like we were still into hip hop back in 87, 88. But I was still getting into house as well. Yeah. But around the acid house time, we'd give, I know I shouldn't say, but we kind of gave our friend a bit of grief and called him a sellout for listening to acid house. We kind of say, oh, you're a bit selling out, you know, like you're not into hip hop anymore. But come 88, I was banging to it. You know, I loved house music. I fell in love with it, and then I started moving away from hip hop more and getting more into the house music.
That's exactly what happened to me. I hated house first, as I said. It would be, oh, what is this? And it had to be being taken there, going to. There was a rave or a party at Lee Film Studios in Wembley. So I remember going. That was one of the first acid house parties I went to. It might have been Nicky Holloway and Pete Tong, and just being taken to that. I hadn't done ecstasy even then, but just being there, seeing the atmosphere and the vibe blew me away, and I wanted to know more about it, and slowly started to like the music. And then after taking ecstasy, the music became more kind of enhanced, and the music became more important to me by hearing it on ecstasy. I wanted to get those records, when before that I wasn't really fussed about buying hip hop records. Maybe the electro stuff, but I wasn't a DJ or anything.
And I'll tell you another thing as well, which was kind of getting me into it as well, was the hip house. Because there was a few
there was
house
a crossover.
tunes. A crossover, yeah.
Yeah, Tyree
Cooper and Roxanne Shante.
She did a acid track.
Yeah, and Planet E.
Casey Flight. Yeah. So I watched some documentary on Chicago, and for some of those guys, they were into hip hop. Those were hip hop guys. They were rappers, but because house was such a big thing, they were two different camps apparently in Chicago, and house was seen as kind of gay music, and a lot of people into hip hop were ashamed to say they liked house, and those guys were good. They crossed over, like Tyree, the hip house things, at that time, which was interesting. That Roxanne Shante track, I still like it now.
It's a tune, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
In terms of, quickly on the hip-hop thing, in terms of listening to, say, the breaks, the samples and all that, would you say that kind of expanded your musical knowledge in terms of different styles of music?
Exactly. So those tapes, again, Scam had these tapes until they were Zulu Nation tapes recorded at the jams that they're all on YouTube now. So it was Bambaataa, Islam, those guys just cutting up breaks with some MCs over the top. And the breaks that Bambaataa used to cut up, it would be all kinds of music. You'd get like punk, post-punk, electro, synth stuff, rock, funk, obviously, James Brown, soul, funk, disco. It was really across the board. But at that time, I didn't think of genres. I just thought breaks. These are breaks, whatever genre.
But then it'd be like things like Mardi Gras.
Yeah, Mardi Gras, fusion things.
Yeah.
All kinds of Elvis. I've heard one of these jams. Someone just dropped Elvis in the middle of the jam, and then the Monsters theme or something like that.
yeah. People were experimenting.
It was very creative and experimental, and anything goes in the right context. It kind of made sense. So that attitude
100%
was the beginnings of hip hop, but it was very eclectic. It wasn't rap. It was them cutting up music from wherever that just had a groove. It just was kind of good drums.
It kind of worked.
Yeah, it kind of worked. Could have been electro, it could have been live drums. So that maybe I'm more into the breaks, that attitude and break beats than rap, I guess. So that eclecticism stayed with me, and the beginnings of acid house were similar. So Alfredo was the Balearic DJ.
Yeah, big up to Alfredo,
from Ibiza,
yeah.
Who brought, I guess, the acid house DJs who went there brought that ecstasy culture and eclecticism, which is now called Balearic, attitude here. And Alfredo would drop NWA or some industrial track or Frankie Knuckles or whatever. He was just eclectic.
It's a real mixture
of
of
anything.
Sade and it's a real mixture of music,
which made sense.
Which kind of works. Bit of Bob Marley.
Bob Marley.
This stuff works. Rolling Stones,
B-sides, house music, whatever. So that, and even at the raves, I went to Sunrise, A Midsummer's Night's Dream on Midsummer Night 1989, and one of the DJs played Phil Collins, In the Air Tonight.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
Tony Wilson. We used to go clubbing down in Deptford, Champs. Tony Wilson used to drop that as well.
Right.
Phil Collins in
the Air Tonight.
In the Air Tonight. Yeah. So at the end, it used to be usually towards the end of the set.
Okay. I think this was as the sun was coming up, or it was in the day, and it was In the Air Tonight. It all made sense when you were on ecstasy. Yeah. Something in the air tonight. And you'd hear even the dance music was quite varied. Todd Terry was kind of hip hop influenced beats. Yeah. Then you get a bit more pure Chicago house. You get more vocal garage coming from New York. A lot of Italian stuff would have break beats and cheesy rap. And
some of that Italian house was amazing.
Yeah, Italian house and their kind of funky stuff.
Did you ever go flying at Soho Theatre?
No, I knew about it, and they had a record shop.
Flying in,
and
that's
Clive,
like Market.
Vinyl Junkies, Clive used to work there.
Yeah. So big shout out to Clive. Interviewed Rocky.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
From Express 2, and Rocky, once again, he had the same kind of.
They were mates, so they're mates. I
think. But he had the same kind of upbringing with us, doing a bit of Graff and all, and into the early hip hop and all that. A big shout out to Rocky.
So it was that kind of anything goes, which I still like now. Things have got, because dance music is such an industry, things have just got so fractured, or like it's just this tech house, deep house, hard house.
It's gone all over the shop.
It's just people are just doing one really narrow thing, and I like to kind of embrace a bit of everything, and as long as it works in the right context, and that probably goes way back to the hip hop.
It would be being experimenting, yeah.
Beginnings of each scene seem to be very eclectic. Heavenly Social as well, the big beat.
Yeah.
Again, Heavenly Social was just anything goes in the right context. You'd hear all mad shit, disco, indie music, acid house, whatever.
I'll tell you who I used to love listening to as well. Their shows was ColdCut.
ColdCut were a massive influence to me as well.
Was they?
Yeah.
ColdCut they used to do a show on Kiss FM.
Yeah.
They was amazing.
Religiously listen.
They dropped things like Elvis and like they would drop like, you know, some rare groove funk tune or electronic tune. I mean, they was blending like literally using all styles of music. Didn't matter what it was, as long as it sounded wicked.
They put it together really well. There's a mix called Journeys by DJs that they did. It was one of the best DJ mixes ever. It bit everything, drum and bass, soul, hip hop, house.
Yeah.
So good. But their attitude, and I was lucky enough to meet Jonathan from ColdCut, Jonathan Moore, and he was a really nice guy. I DJed with him a few times. He was a nice guy, but they were so influential to me. But again, the attitude, and even early Colin Dale things. Because I watched the Colin Dale interview.
Yeah, he's wicked.
And he, on his shows, he'd have the abstract dance, which was a chance to play a bit more out there stuff. So he'd play things like Layback, Sympathy for the Devil, which was an industrial cover version of Sympathy for the Devil.
Rolling Stones.
Yeah, he'd play match like that, and European stuff. And then Scarlet Fantastic.
Yeah, No Memories.
Yeah, No Memories.
Oh, what a tune.
So the originators and the guys and the beginnings of these scenes were always quite open-minded, and I got really inspired by that, and still carry that with me now. But big up Colin. He was a huge influence.
Yeah, man, big up Colin Dale, and our big RIP to Colin Favour as well.
Yeah, Colin Favour as well. Colin Dale and Colin Favour, I used to listen to them religiously.
And going back to Kensington Market was another great spot. You'd have your Flying Records in there. Across the road you had Hyper, which was another wicked spot. But Kensington Market, there was a shop in there called Sign of the Times, and we used to go to the Sign of the Times parties, which were wicked. I mean, they were so good. Did you ever go to any Sign of the Times parties? Well,
I DJ'd at a few of them.
Did you?
Basically, I took a trip to New York in maybe 1990 and 92, and got just learned about all the disco and Paradise Garage and Loft music, classics, because I never knew anything about that, and that was before the internet, so you'd have to go to there to find out and find these records, and the guys in the record shops would school me on the Garage and the Loft. So I bought all the Loft classics, all the Garage classics, all these Danny Krivit bootlegs.
Wow.
I came back with them here and did disco mixtapes. So because I lived in Bayswater, I'd go walk into Kensington Market a lot. I remember getting my ear pierced there. And then there were like goth shops. It was a lot of youth culture, rockabilly, goth, punk. Sign of the Times was there, and so I went into Sign of the Times and I said, would you be interested in selling these disco mixtapes, because I knew she liked disco.
Big shout out to Fiona.
Big up Fiona, shout out to Fiona.
I need to get Fiona, if you ever watch this, we need to get you in the cab as well for an interview.
I know her quite well, so I'll mention it to her.
Definitely, yeah.
So she started selling my disco mixtapes of stuff that I'd got from New York. So
really?
It was all quite, what's this? And so then she asked me to DJ at a few of the Sign of the Times parties, but not in the back room or not in the main room.
In the back room.
So you'd get people like Mark Moore, Chemical Brothers, those guys. I'd do the alternative sets in the back room. So I
think I remember actually.
I think Brixton Academy was a massive one.
Yeah, but there was. Yeah,
I've got a few flyers.
It might have been Dolphin Love.
There was an Elvis one. There was some kind of doctors and nurses. There
was a themed ones, yeah. But I'll tell you another good thing as well with the flyers, like the attention to the detail on those flyers for Sign of the Times are wicked as well. I remember there's a really lot of work put into them parties. They weren't just like a warehouse with some like a sound system. They were, as you say, they were themed, and they were like really kind of
I mean, like back then, the promoters seemed a lot more creative. They wanted to create something that people could all go and enjoy. It was something special. So Fiona put a lot of effort into these themes, into the way it looked, into people who dressed up would go there.
Definitely,
really made a lot of effort.
It wasn't just about like dressing up in terms of like, going to dress up, wear a suit. This is in terms of being creative, dressing up to look a bit like, like stylish and like a bit different. Yeah,
definitely making something from with your outfit kind of thing for some people. And it was very mixed. It was mixed gay, transvestite, normal clubbers, b-boys, whatever.
Anything
it was very
went.
Mixed.
Anything went.
Yeah. So Fiona was a big influence in the UK, in London clubbing.
100%. But also a little bit later on, Saber Sonic happened, and I'm a massive fan of Andrew Weatherall. Big R.I.P. to Weatherall. We lost him a few years back. Tunes like James Come Home, My Bloody Valentine, the Screamadelica album. Would you say Weatherall was a bit of an influence?
Probably one of the biggest influences in DJing and music and attitude. I guess I was into the early Weatherall. Maybe after just going to hear him DJ once, and he kind of stood out more than the other DJs, just as someone who's a bit different and a bit interesting. So, and then me and my friend had gone to hear him play at a night called Shakavara,
yeah.
I think Steve Proctor was playing.
I went to that.
Yeah, Shakavara.
Was it in Mayfair or something?
I'm not sure. It was like 92, 93.
I went to that.
So we just went up to him and went, we're big fans, and I do graffiti. If you ever need any artwork or whatever. And he was like, thanks for coming up and chatting. It'd be good because I'd like something more anarchistic. So it kind of just went from there, and then I went to his office, and he said if I wanted to do like the record cover to Smoke, a new
Smoke
single
Belch.
coming out called Smoke Belch. So I went away and got some ideas together, then did a huge canvas, because I couldn't paint in small spaces because of graffiti. It had to be big. So I did this. I made the canvas, this massive canvas, and which was bending at the top because I didn't know how to make a canvas properly, and did these 3 chimneys with smoke coming out and the kind of red sunset so he came and took the canvas away, and they took a photo of it, and I thought, they're going to use the whole canvas for the thing, but they zoomed in on a small bit in the middle and used that as the cover.
Wow, I never even knew that.
Yeah, they used it.
I never knew that.
So if you look, it's got my name on the back of the cover.
Is it
painting.
really?
Yeah, Smoke Belch.
Wow.
I'm
blown away. I never even knew that.
Yeah. So that's how I got to know him, through Sabers. And then I said, I'm a DJ as well. And so I gave him a tape, like I did a mixtape. So he said, do you want to come and do warm-up at Saber Sonic, one of the early Saber Sonics?
I pretty much went to every single Saber Sonic down at Happy Jack's in London
same
Bridge.
here.
Yeah.
Again, that was a seminal club, really influential.
Big time.
Part of London history. And it ended at like 2 or something. It ended quite early.
It was in a massive warehouse underneath London Bridge, wasn't it?
Happy Jack's,
yeah.
And the smell, when you went in, it smelled
like a mushroomy,
weird mould, damp smell.
Yeah.
And the whole atmosphere of the place was perfect. It was like dark and damp and dingy. And this kind of
wicked venue.
Yeah. So I ended up doing some backdrops for Saber Sonic as well. So as you came in where the till was, my friend Anna was on the till. So behind her was a sword going into a gravestone. I've got the photos now. I've still got the photos. That was a backdrop for Saber Sonic. Yeah. So I've still got the photos. I don't think no one knows where the actual things are anymore. The original Smoke Belch painting, the backdrops for Saber Sonic. So I got to DJ at one of the first ones, and there wasn't really anyone there until Weatherall came on. So he'd come on about 12, and then people would start to come for the last couple of hours.
Yeah.
So I played to about 10 people or something.
It was wicked. There's some amazing DJs passing from. I mean, remember Alex Knight?
Alex Knight used to do it a lot.
You had Fat Cat Records as well, wasn't it? In Covent Garden. Big shout out to Alex and Dave as well from Fat Cat.
There was John and Lee Grange and John Reynolds and Flossie used to work in Fat Cat.
Yeah, it's a wicked shop. Went in Covent Garden. Yeah, you used to go down the stairs and you did a pound in.
Yeah, it was really influential for the techno scene.
It was. Did you go Chucky's Tunes as well?
I used to go in there now and again, and he started off in the back of a shop in Carnaby Street. So in Carnaby Street, my friend's dad ran this shop, and Chucky had the little bit at the back. Chucky and Harvey, they used to work in there. Harvey used to be in there sometimes.
Yeah, big up to Chucky and Harvey.
Yeah.
Tonka Sound System.
Tonka Sound System.
Chucky's been in my cab as well.
Right, I think I watched it. Yeah,
there's another wicked interview. Yeah.
And Harvey's another influence. His eclecticism, his attitude, and his DJing. He was always the guy with the tunes. So I used to go into Chucky and Harvey a little bit, but then Chucky moved, and the guys who ran the shop, who were friends of mine, they asked me to work there for a bit, and it lasted a few months. I kind of worked in there. But yeah, big
going back to Weatherall, man, a big RIP to Weatherall. What an absolute legend that we lost, you know. So when we found out that he'd passed, it was kind of it was tough to deal with, man, because he was such an influence,
definitely,
and an inspiration, you know?
Definitely, and as a person as well. I got to know him quite well as a person, like integrity. He had integrity. He'd never really sold out. He could be offered tens of thousands of pounds to do this or that, and he just was like, no, I don't believe in that, I don't do this, he did everything on his own terms, so he was completely independent and can pick and choose. He put his own stuff out, his own label, his own studio, his own people. I was on Haywire, which was at the agency for a bit. I played at so I DJ'd with him a lot, so at Sabers, and then it was Haywire did Haywire sessions, and Blood Sugar, which was at the Blue Note, was he played more deep house there.
That was another wicked club, wasn't it?
So I played at Blood Sugar, and then Rotters Golf Club, which was part of Haywire, early 2000s, when they play a lot of electro. There was a place called the Fortress in Old Street where they had a Rotters Golf Club's party, and I saw Richie Horton play there as well with them. So I kind of got to know Weatherall, and then the Heavenly Social. I kind of became a resident at the Heavenly Social. Weatherall used to be part of that.
Where was that,
scene.
down Little Poolman Street?
So it started there, but then I got into it at Turnmills. So they do Saturday nights at Turnmills every week. Yeah. So they'd have amazing DJs. They'd have ColdCut, Weatherall, like Tom Middleton, Global Communications, other really cool DJs playing there. Fatboy Slim, obviously, those guys. So that was another kind of influence in London clubbing. It was massive in the mid to late 90s, and I was lucky to be a part of that. But Weatherall was key in that scene as well.
Mid 90s.
Yeah. And Weatherall did with Tim J Fairplay. They had a production outfit called the Asphodels, and it was an honour for me to remix one of Weatherall's tracks and them to remix one of mine. So that was like a dream come true.
Is that how you started to get into music production?
I started as Bronx Dogs. So
I can't wait to talk. Right, let's get straight
we're going to Bronx Dogs.
I want to go straight to Bronx Dogs. So this is around the same
time. So mid to late 90s. Paul Eve, DJ Regal, who I worked with him in Music and Video Exchange in the second-hand record shop. So that's how I got to know Paul. He was coming from a hip-hop and breaks background. So he knew about a lot of breaks. And I was into breaks, but I was more from the house and techno background. So we kind of met in the middle with breaks. So disco breaks, funk, post-punk, electro, that kind of middle ground where we both liked. So he'd been doing music as the Wise Guys with Theo.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
So he was with Theo in the Wise Guys.
Right.
So he'd been in the studios before, but we always needed an engineer. So back then we didn't know how to produce. It was a bit more difficult. You had to have the equipment. You had to have a studio.
Expensive as well, wasn't it?
Samplers, that kind of thing.
Where was you going? What studio?
So his friend Alex had a studio in Exmouth Market. It was just a basement where he had a decent little setup, a nice desk, good speakers, samplers, some decent synths, compressors, good EQs, that kind of thing. So Paul was like, why don't we go in and just take a load of breaks and try and do something together, cut and paste, a bit like ColdCut, a bit like Steinsky, Double D and Steinsky. And our inspiration was the death mix, you know, the recording of the death mix, the record.
The Bambaataa thing.
Bambaataa thing with Jazzy J.
Yeah.
And so I think it's Jazzy J doing all the cutting up. And on one of his mixtapes, it might not be on the death mix, but there's Jazzy J cutting up the Edwin Starbreak, I Just Want to Do My Thing, with just a bass line and a groove. So we thought, why don't we try and imitate the death mix? But we're using those breaks, but just doing our own cut and paste. So the bass, we used that Edwin Starr as the basis of it, and we took samples of the MC going, it's Jazzy.
Yeah, J.
And then the Queen Samantha and other breaks he used. We just got the originals, did a cut and paste, and put a few samples over the top, and called it Tribute to Jazzy J.
Yeah, it's an amazing tune. Anyone watching this, please check out Tribute to Jazzy J by the Bronx Dogs, because it's one of my personal favourites. It is absolutely wicked tune. And why did you call yourself the Bronx Dogs?
Right,
that's a really unusual name, isn't it?
Because of hip hop. There's a book called HipHop by Stephen Hager.
Yeah.
It's really rare. It goes for a lot of money now. It's one of the first books I ever saw on hip hop. And I got given one. It got passed down between loads of writers. And inside is just bombed with a lot of New York writer. Frosty Freeze has got a tag in there.
Wow.
T-Kid. All these other names that I found out about later on. And then UK writers started tagging it. And I ended up with it. I still got it. But in that book, it starts off with the gangs. So how the gangs used to dress. Savage Skulls
and Nomads and
those guys.
Black Spades.
Yeah, with the Pro-Ked and flares.
They got that outlook from the Outlaw gang, didn't they? That kind of image, that look, with the boots,
from
the motorcycle.
Like biker gangs.
Yeah, outlaws.
And then cut off sleeves, cut off denim jackets.
Sleeves,
so it explained all that, and it had this picture of this three-legged dog in the Bronx. Like in the midst of all this rubble, there was just this three-legged dog there.
Haven't you got that on the cover?
So we called our album Three-Legged Funk.
Three-Legged Funk, yeah.
And we said, and someone said, "Oh, look at the Bronx Dog."
The Bronx Dog, and
then we thought, that's a good name.
That's genius.
Bronx Dog.
That is genius. But that's amazing. And did you ever send that mix to Jazzy J? Big shout out to Jazzy J as well. I mean, I've met Jazzy J a few times. What an absolute diamond. Big shout out to Prit Kelsey as well. I'll send this to Prit, and then he'll send this to, hopefully he might send this interview to Jazzy J to watch.
That would be amazing. Basically, Jazzy, because I work in the second-hand record shop, Music and Video Exchange, Jazzy J in Bambaataa came in once.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
When I was there.
Wow.
And luckily I had a copy. So I went up to Jazzy J and went, we made this track dedicated to you. And he looked at it and he went, Tribute to Jazzy J. Wow. So he got it. We gave it to him, yeah. And then I went to hear him play somewhere when he was over. I can't remember where. He did a gig. And he was a really nice guy, down to earth, just easy to talk to, really cool.
He's an absolute
absolute legend.
Yeah, absolute.
Yeah.
You know, he's one of these people, same with Chuck D and all that, you know, they're huge stars, or they're absolute legends, but they will treat you with respect and give you the time of day and talk to you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, they're really...
How it should be.
Yeah.
Because you start from somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, we all start from somewhere, and then,
They've got
treat people how you'd like to be treated, yeah.
So moving on, I mean, there's so much more we can cover. We'd have to do a part two, Rich, because honestly, it's an amazing interview, this. But We need to talk about your new album. And
okay, so
India Man. I mean, can you hold it up to the camera?
Okay, yes.
Look at that, it's beautiful. Tell me about this, like the name, the design. I mean,
so basically, I do a radio show. I'm going to plug the radio show.
Yeah.
The station's called Do You, so it's doyou.world every Friday.
But what do you mean, like DOYOU?
Yeah, DOYOU.world. It's every Friday, 12 till 2. I've got a residency there, and the guy Charlie and Oscar run the station. Charlie Bones, he used to do a show on NTS. He just left NTS and created his own station, and now it's got a really good community of people. So me and Charlie and Oscar were sitting outside one day eating pizza. Some local nutter came up and went, India Man to me, and Charlie was like, why don't you call your album that? Because I'd made the album. Charlie wanted to put it out, so I thought, yeah, why not? And I started thinking about my heritage, my great-grandfather who came here in the 20s just to study, and then my grandfather who came here, and he was a singer in the 30s, like all the music halls on the seaside towns. And then my father, he came in the 50s, so it was like India Man, 3 generations of India Man. So I thought, that's a good name, why not? So the album's called India Man, and I thought, with everything I do now, with all the vinyl, I want to do my own artwork, do a painting. So
I love the font on that as well.
The font, Butch, who did the design, found the font. I think it's called Burra.
I've never seen that font style before.
I know, it's kind of 70s sci-fi a bit, but
it's wicked.
It suits it perfectly.
Beautiful.
But I did a painting, a 1 meter by 1 meter canvas, and thought, let me experiment with oil painting and spray paint. So I'd taken this photo in India on the Ganges. I'd taken the photo, so I wanted just to copy the photo,
but put it on the canvas.
Yeah, put it on canvas, but it looks different, but you can see the influence. So I just did a painting for the cover, and I'd never used oil paintings before, so I went to the National Gallery and the Tate and looked at all this Turner and like got inspired by the old school, like 1700s, 1800s,
wow,
before photography, how they paint, and it really inspired me more than modern art. I don't know, something about it you just feel rather than think. So I got inspired by Turner and did my own lame imitation of mixing up the spray paint with oil.
Yeah,
so the
amazing.
Original painting, I'm going to get prints done and sign them and put them in the album and sell them on Bandcamp. So anyone who wants a print of the painting and the album can buy it on my Bandcamp page.
So yeah, how do you find your Bandcamp?
Just Bandcamp.
This is all new to me. I don't really.
So Bandcamp is where artists can sell their own stuff and get most of the money.
Right.
So just go to Bandcamp and type in Richard Sen in it. It will take you to my page.
Richard Sen, yeah. And can you also purchase, obviously, digital format?
Digital as well, yeah.
Can you get CD?
Not CD, just vinyl. Digital files
vinyl.
and vinyl. And then it will be able to stream on Spotify and Apple Music and that kind of thing.
And how long did it take you to produce the album?
Well, I did it slowly over a couple of years. Just
that's not bad.
Random tracks, getting a load of tracks together. I didn't think I'm going to do an album, but just getting tracks together. A few messing around with Indian vocal samples, so just kind of having fun, having 2 or 3 tracks with some Indian influences.
I'll tell you what, some of them. I mean, I was going to do it years ago, back in the early 90s. I was going to sample some Bangra beats. Right. Because them beats as well are wicked. The Bangra, I don't know what they use. Is it Congos or something?
I'm not sure.
But them Bangra beats are amazing.
Yeah. Some of the rhythms that they get. Yeah. Amazing. Like some even hip hop. I think didn't Missy Elliott sample with some kind of Indian influence backing Timberland
could have been, yeah. And how would you describe the album? I mean,
I'd say, well, Balearic has become a term now for a certain type of music rather than an attitude what it was before. So quite chilled. There's slow tracks from 90 BPM up to more house tracks. So a bit of kind of Indian influenced new disco and house and slow tracks. So I've actually sampled Funky Drummer for one of the tracks, because a lot of the early 90s things sample Funky Drummer. It's almost like a classic drum sound, like an 808 to me now. Like Apache, Funky Drummer, the Amen Break, they're just classic sounds. And I thought, why not use Funky Drummer for one of the tracks with an Indian vocal sample over the top?
So what you've really done, thinking about
quite
it, is
eclectic again.
You know, really, this is an album that is kind of it's all this kind of music that's inspired you over the years. This has really been put into one album.
Exactly.
And you've got a mixture of everything in there.
Tried to. Hopefully, it's not too many influences, but I've tried to not make it too heavy. So not really club stuff. More for listening. I mean, you could play some of the 2 or 3 of the tracks in more open-minded clubs or back rooms or whatever. There are a couple of house tracks on there, an Indian disco thing. So taking influences from early 90s and disco and house with some Indian influences in there, I guess.
Well, I'm going to be on that and going to Bandcamp and downloading your digital files without a doubt. And anyone watching this, please support, you know, Richard's music, because it's absolutely wicked. We're going to touch on this very quickly now, Rich, because I know we're going to have to do a part 2, because you're burning out quite a few of my batteries on this one. I need a few more batteries.
Okay.
But this is amazing chatting to you, and an incredible interview. But you also are studying criminology now as well.
Well, so, I did a master's at the LSE, London School of Economics, which is probably one of the best unis for social sciences. So I did a degree at Birkbeck and did well in it, and thought, wow, because of my background going through the criminal justice system, I thought, well, I've got something to offer from the inside about criminology, the system, criminal behaviour, youth culture and crime, that kind of thing. So it interested me. So I did the masters. The book that we studied from our degree was called Criminology by Tim Newburn. And then going to LSE, Tim Newburn was my supervisor.
Really?
So he is like one of the leading criminologists in the UK. Shout out to Tim Newburn.
Yeah.
Who actually messaged me about music, about my album. He likes music. So reading his work and then being my supervisor, I did my dissertation on graffiti, and he was like, this is fascinating, I know nothing about this, the graffiti subculture.
I'd love to read that.
I can send you it. Yeah,
can you really?
I can send you it.
Email it to me. I'd love to read that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So because of graffiti, how things that are part of the culture, so raves, drug use, illegal raves, graffiti, our culture and crime kind of interact with each other. How things that are criminal are also part of the culture. That fascinated me. So I did my master's, and then I was working as a research assistant for Institute for Crime and Policy Research, which is part of Birkbeck University. So I was working on a study on fraud and money laundering, interviewing people in prison, fraudsters, and then interviewing the City of London Financial Crime Unit. I'd be in the City of London Police Headquarters with the Financial Crime Unit, sitting there thinking, 30, 35, 40 years ago, I would have hated you guys. I had so much hate for the police. Now I'm working with them, and I can see they're all right. They're doing things for the right reasons. These are good guys. And how things have changed, how you change, how 100%, people change, how people get older and realise, hold on, we do need the police, but there's a lot of work that can be done within policing.
Without a doubt.
It's complex.
Hopefully things are moving on, and hopefully, you know, the police are getting kind of their PR or their kind of the way they approach people and all that is hopefully going to get a bit better. Yeah,
definitely. It's definitely improved now.
What it's about. I mean, we could this could be another interview in total talking about this, but you know what they need to do is, instead of approaching and looking to see, what you're doing, what you're up to, this, that, and the other, with an aggressive approach, come in at a respectful approach. And
it's called procedural justice. It's like being able to that was one of the things we learned in criminology. Say for stop and search, it's like interacting with the community to make links with so everyone's cool with each other, so everyone's working together for the right reasons, and there's no division, so people don't have that them and us, the police are against us. When everyone in general wants to stop crime, so work together with communities is the way, and 100%. Being respectful and polite to people gets you a lot further, and building relationships than just gung-ho approaches.
I mean, you know, this is another a lengthy discussion that we could have, but maybe we should have a...
But that was all fascinating, and that's why I got into criminology. But I'm kind of not doing much apart from voluntary work, like the Brixton prison thing. Now, talking to prisoners as part of St. Giles's Trust, just as a volunteer, to just tell them my story, what happened to me. Everyone's different, not everyone's creative. Some people might be more entrepreneurial, some people more business or organised minded, managerial, some people can't even read. So not everyone's going to be identified with my story, but it's rewarding for everyone to give people something positive, and that's how I'm using my criminology, I guess, because I actually was in Brixton for a week as part of my sentence, so going back there to talk to some of the prisoners blew my mind. But
like 30 odd years later,
it was exactly the same. It looked exactly the same.
None of them have changed. Wormwood Scrubs, Pentonville, they're all the same.
And it seems to be more corrupt now. There's more drugs, more corruption. They're just warehouses to contain people rather than rehabilitate. So all of this kind of connects to my experiences as a teenager. I'm trying to maybe give something back, or just put stuff out there and see what happens.
Well, Rich, it's incredible with, you know, what you're doing and doing that voluntary work. You know, a little goes a long way.
Exactly.
You know, a little goes a long way, and even if you touch one, spark off something in one person's, you know, head to get them around, to keep them away from troubles and violence and all that, or whatever the crime they've committed, to get them on the straight path, look for positivity. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and to channel some kind of energy into a creative energy is one way of doing it.
And that's a good thing with music as well. Music is one way for you to get lost in creativity and away from the madness.
And that's, for me, it's the only time I'm in the zone, as they say, when time doesn't matter, nothing else matters, and you're just enjoying the vibe of creating. And that's why I love making music and DJing as well.
All I know is I've had an honour chatting to you. I mean,
I hope
you've
so much.
Enjoyed this little interview. I mean, I wish there's loads more I want to talk about, but obviously, you know, you've burnt out 2 or 3 of my batteries on my camera, and it's been quite an in-depth interview.
Thanks, Steve. No, it's an honour being part of your podcast, because I've watched quite a few, and there's some absolute legends, hip-hop legends, clubland legends, house music legends. Wow.
And some unsung heroes.
Unsung heroes.
So
Pops
many.
I watched.
Pops 100.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, and he gives you a shout.
Yeah, he gave me a shout.
Big up to Pops 100 from Nottingham.
Nottingham, yeah.
What I'm going to try and do is put in the link or something in this interview in the description box below, where you can download,
I'll send you the Bandcamp link.
Yeah. Send me that link, and hopefully I can put it in within the description box on the interview.
Brilliant.
So please, everyone, check out Richard's work.
Brilliant. Cheers, Steve.
But Rich, it's been absolutely incredible. And as we say from the old Chicab, peace.
Peace.